Hello friends and welcome to a very exciting episode, a video that I'm making. This was a request from Callum. I want to say Callum because I'm from Chicago, but it's Callum. C-A-L. Anyway, Callum is one of my patrons. He is starting up his own activities, and he would like to know more about how you make a character. So there are plenty of videos about how to make a D&D character, but I'm going to share my unique perspective with you. So here's the player's handbook. Here's a pencil. Here are some dice. Yes. And a character sheet. Now you could get these for free from Wizards of the Coast, but even if you don't want to print out one of these, you could just use normal notebook paper. So what I'm going to do is walk through how most people make characters. So they start off with a race, a class, and then they go through their attributes, and then they pick a background. And that's all fine and dandy. You could do it that way. Here in the DM's guide, if you just, or the player's handbook, if you just start opening up the book, the first few pages, part 1, creating a character. So page 11, it says choose a race, choose a class. Determine ability scores. Describe your character. That is, if I followed the book, you could just follow these directions and make a character. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's how you want to do that. I actually start backwards. I think about my character concept. I start with this part 4. I describe the character first. I think of the character. Okay? So we're going to make a character. I have not walked into this video with any preparation. So the first thing that I need to think of is, like, who is this person? I think of the concept. I think of what the character looks like. Maybe I think about the race or the class, but that's not the initial thing. What I'm thinking about is kind of more the story of this person. And I think when you start with their background and then work your way back and integrate the race and class, you come up with a stronger character because you can mentally kind of visualize that character. So I'm going to flip through this book and choose a race at random. I've chosen elf. So I have 3 choices, really. High elf, wood elf, and drow. I'm going to go with wood elf. Okay, so that's going to be my random race. But again, in my process, I like to start before that. I like to think of the backgrounds. So we're actually going to skip ahead. We're going to skip past races and classes. We're not even going to roll dice or assign attributes or anything. I'm going to the backgrounds section. Okay, so starting on page 127, we have the Acolyte, Charlatan, Criminal, Entertainer, Folk Hero, Guild Artisan, Hermit, Noble, Outlander, Sage, Sailor, Soldier, and Urchin. So I have this idea. This just came to me. I have an idea for an adventurer who is specifically focused on, like, gems and jewelry, right? The pursuit of these magnificent pieces of wealth. And that's the driving force behind this adventurer. This adventurer seeks out the rarest gems, the most ancient jewelry. And because he is a guild artisan. So I'm thinking about this character, and I'm looking at guild business. We have jewelers and gem cutters. That could definitely work. Yeah. So I like that idea. I like the idea of somebody who has a refined ability to appraise gems and jewelry, and who goes on adventures specifically seeking out rare gems, rare jewelry. The gems themselves, but also gems that are already set in jewelry. Maybe there are legendary, jewelry belonging to royals. I'm not thinking like grave robber kind of character. This is not an evil character per se, but just more of like a really zealous pursuer of rare gems and jewelry antiquities. Like an Indiana Jones, but focused on jewels and gems. How's that sound? Okay, so we just picked this at random. I had no preconceived notion. So I'm going to start with the background. So on your character sheet, let me make sure this is in focus. Yeah. On my background sheet, I'm going to write Guild Artisan. Sometimes I like to use just normal notebook paper, specifically because these sheets have really small print and I write big. Okay, so I've made a Guild Artisan, and we randomly chose by flipping pages that this will be a elf. Okay. Now that I know Guild Artisan, let's actually take a closer look at what the Guild Artisan gives me. So again, I'm going to try to get this shot in the frame and in focus, which I believe it is. So this is on page 132. As a Guild Artisan, you get skill proficiencies in Insight and Persuasion, which is great because a Guild Artisan, by definition, might have interactions with people socially and might want to read people's cues and also persuade them to either sell things for cheaper or buy things for more money, right? We also have tool proficiencies in one type of artisan's tools. So I'm going to go with the whole like gem cutting kit. I don't even know what that is, but we'll look it up later. Languages, one additional of your choice. And equipment, a set of artisan's tools, a letter of introduction from your guild, a set of traveler's clothes, and a pouch containing 15 gold. That's just some extra gravy. Okay. Now, every background, if you don't know this, every background also comes with a feature. And this feature for Guild Artisan is cool. It's guild membership. So here we are. Basically, it says that as a respected member of a guild, you can rely on certain benefits. Your fellow guild members will provide you with lodging and food if necessary, or pay for your funeral if needed. In some cities and towns, a guild hall offers a central place to meet other people in your profession. So it's kind of like a network of contacts or allies. They might not like take an arrow for you, but you know they're there to kind of facilitate things. Sometimes guilds wield tremendous political power too. So if the DM is smart, the DM will look at your character concept and your background and integrate that into the storyline. But as a player, this is a really cool thing. So you must pay dues of 5 gold per month to the guild. If you miss payments, you must make backup dues to remain in their good graces. That also adds a great story hook for your DM. It's something that it drives you to earn. So, remember this is an adventurer, okay? Now, along with that, backgrounds also provide suggested personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. So we're going to take a look at this. Make sure that's in focus. Okay. So, personality traits. I believe that anything worth doing is worth doing right. I'm a perfectionist. Nope. Going to skip that. I'm a snob who looks down on those who can't appreciate fine art. No. I always want to know how things work and what makes people tick. No. I'm full of witty aphorisms and have a proverb for every occasion. Maybe. I might be able to work that in. I'm rude to people who lack... No. I don't want this guy to be rude. I like to talk at length about my profession. That could be funny. That's a maybe. I don't part with money easily and will haggle tirelessly to get the best possible deal. That could be a maybe. I'm well known for my work and I want to make sure everyone appreciates it. I'm always taken aback when people haven't heard of me. That also could work. Now remember, we haven't even picked out a class yet. This is what I mean by my backward design technique. I'm thinking about this character and how they interact with others and how they function in the game and in the party. Right? This is an adventurer. I don't even know what class we are yet. I don't even know specifically what subrace of elf we are yet. But I'm thinking about these personality traits, and that is why I start backwards. It helps to flesh out a character concept so that you're not just making a sheet with numbers on it. You want your character to be more than just numbers. That's what makes a good D&D character, or frankly, any tabletop role-playing game. All right, so I liked a few of these things. I could see this working out. Now I'm just ruminating on it. I'm marinating in the ideas, okay? Let's go to the ideals. Kind of focus this shot. There we go. Community. No. Generosity. No. Freedom. Everyone should be free to pursue his or her own livelihood. That's kind of cool. Greed. I'm only in it for the money. Nah. I'm committed to the people I care about, not ideals. Aspiration. I work hard to be the best there is at my craft. Aspiration might be cool. I like that. All right, then we're moving on to bond. Okay, so what's this guy's bond? The workshop where I learn my trade is the most important place in the world. That could be cool if your DM is centering your adventures in one specific city or region, but I want to be flexible and be able to move around an adventure. Remember the original concept. This guy goes on adventures and expeditions seeking gems or jewels. Not just expeditions where it's specifically about gems or jewels, but maybe he's always looking, any adventure he goes on, for potential gems and jewels. I owe my guild a great debt for forging me into the person I am today. Maybe. I pursue wealth to secure someone's love. No. One day I'll return to my guild and prove that I'm the greatest artisan. Meh. I'll get revenge on the evil forces that destroyed my place of business. So none of those bonds are really heavy to me. Maybe the one where he appreciates his guild. But then we have our flaws. So your flaws also help determine who your character is. I'll do anything to get my hands on something rare or priceless. I like that. That fits with what we were talking about. I'm quick to assume that someone is trying to cheat me. No. No one must ever learn that I once stole. No. I'm never satisfied with what I have. I always want more. Maybe. I would kill to acquire a noble title. No. I'm horribly jealous of anyone who can outshine my handiwork. No. So, between those, I'm never satisfied with what I have. I always want more, or I'll do anything to get my hands on something rare or priceless. I like that first one. Okay? So, now I'm just going to jot down some notes. And again, this is why we use pencil, so that if we just change our mind, it's fine. Okay? So, here's my flaws. I'm going to write down the gist of the flaws. I'll do anything. See what I mean about small lines? To acquire. ... Okay, you get the gist. Personality trait. I'm going to go with, I like to talk at length about my profession. Maybe this guy's kind of like a gem and jewel nerd. So even when people aren't into that stuff, he'll be like, the interesting thing about jade is that it's derived. Like every once in a while, he'll point out these like jewelry and gem nerd things, and the rest of the party will be like, yeah, that's cool, dude. I just think that'd be kind of a cool little quirk. So I'm gonna go with I like to talk at length about my profession. We're making a character. At length about my profession. I should have just used a notepad. Yeah, so you could probably sort of read my writing. Maybe. There we go. I like to talk at length about my profession. The ideal that I liked the most was I work hard to be the best. I work hard to be the best. And then the bond is I owe my guild. This character is shaping up to be someone who's proud of their profession, who is an adventurer, but the adventuring feeds the profession. It ties in with the profession. The acquisition of these rare things is not always just to sell them to make more money. Maybe he would sell like the lesser quality gems and jewels, but some of the other ones he would keep for himself. The goal of which would be to earn kind of prestige within his guild and amongst the nobles in his community. Okay, so I think that's a great start. Notice, just for a second here, all we've done is the background. So when you ask me, how do you make a character? This is how I make a character, and maybe you should consider trying it. And again, I had no planning with this. Literally this morning, I got a message from my patron, Column, who asked me about how to make a character. So I'm making this video immediately as a response to that, but for all of you to just understand the process. You might have seen me working with the students for D&D and high school students with character creation, but this is how Bill makes it. So check it out. We've got a concept. Now, let's go back. I randomly picked the race of elf. I still don't even know what class I'm going to go with. But let's take a look at elves, because that could have an impact on this character concept. So now we're envisioning this guild artisan who is obsessed with gems and jewels, who wants to not only find them, but also, like, if he finds like rare uncut gems, like that's an opportunity for him to make his mark, right? And to make amazing jewelry and gems, so forth. How does the elf fit in here? So we want to consider this strategically. I'm going to illuminate you on the basics of elves. Okay, so I'm gonna refocus this shot once again. Maybe zoom out a little bit. There we go. That should be in focus. So all elves get a dexterity bonus of 2, which is great. I mean, dexterity is one of those attributes that, like, is pretty universally useful. They are medium-sized. They have a speed of 30. They get dark vision, so they could see in the dark with some limitations, but still better than anyone else, right? That's a really nice thing, because think about where a lot of these expeditions to go find gems might be. They might be in caverns. They might be in old abandoned mines, right? Hopefully the DM would look at my character concept and create some adventures and encounters that would entice me to play this character to its fullest. So there's a cooperative element here. When you're making a character, you have to make a character that you could really visually imagine immersively, and then describe that to your DM so that your DM can include your concept into the overall campaign story arc. Dark vision's cool. Keen senses. You have proficiency in the perception skill, which is also great for our guild artisan gem jewel guy, because he's always looking. He's looking for those rare things, right? So maybe he notices, you know, in a perception check in some subterranean abandoned mine, he sees a vein of gold, or, you know, mithril, or he sees some, you know, obsidian, I don't know, you know, some gems. I don't know things about gems, but basically, you know, that could be valuable, right? Fae Ancestry, which gives you certain saves. Trance, so you can recoup your hit dice with a 4-hour trance instead of an 8-hour long rest, and you get the benefits. Languages, etc. Now, we get on to sub-races. So the differences between a high elf, a drow, and a wood elf. Okay, so a high elf gets a ability score bonus to intelligence. They get elf weapon training. So no matter what class you are, you're proficient with a longsword, short bow, and longbow, which is pretty dope. Like, you could be a wizard with longbow proficiency. On the next page here, they continue with, let me focus again. Sure is good. Hopefully y'all can see that. So we have cantrips. They know one cantrip of their choice from the wizard spell list. So even if you're not a wizard, you got a wizard cantrip, and intelligence is your spellcasting ability for it. That's pretty dope. And extra language. So we actually get 2 extra languages. We get one from our guild artisan background, and we get one if we pick a high elf. That's pretty cool. Then we have wood elves. I like wood elves. They get a bonus to wisdom. They get the elf weapon training. They're fleet of foot, so their base increases to 35 feet, their base movement, which is dope. Mask of the Wild, they can basically camouflage themselves in very light cover, mist, rain, fog, falling snow, that kind of stuff. Awesome. And then there's Drow. I'm going to skip Drow. You know why? Because it's overplayed. It's annoying. Don't play a Drow. Just don't be that person. Plus, people never play Drow the right way anyway. So that could be its own video. So we're narrowing it down. High Elf or Wood Elf. And you know what? I could work with either one. That's the beauty of coming up with this concept first. Okay. If I were to go with the Wood Elf, this would be an adventurer who's always hunting out new adventure and keeping in mind that He's renowned for his work with jewelry making and the acquisition and creation of new gem products. I could very easily make that work. And for a lot of reasons. A wood elf would make a great rogue, for example. And a rogue would make a great kind of guild artisan adventurer. However, I am enticed by the high elf. I'm enticed because having a slightly higher intelligence might be really nice. Having a free spell, one cantrip of your choice from the wizard list, could be cool too. I think I'm going to go with a high elf rogue. That just happened. Why was it so easy for me to make that choice? Because I knew, because of my guild artisan, that would fit. So a high elf rogue is going to have great abilities that work in tandem with the guild artisan background, right? Great adventuring abilities, theft. I mean, if you want to go the sleight of hand route, you get the bonus to dex for being an elf. You get a bonus to intelligence, which works well with history. Yes, that's going to happen. So, rogue, level 1. High elf. Okay, so if you read along in the player's handbook, you would have actually started by choosing a race and then a class and then figuring out your attributes. Well, we started with the backward design method. Now we have a cool concept for a character. So now we get to this part, determining your ability scores. This is on page 12 of the player's handbook. So if you want to determine your ability scores, they list off several ways to do that. You can roll dice. You can do a point buy system. So that's basically where you have a chart of showing how many points it costs to buy up to a certain level. For some things like D&D Adventurers League, it's strictly point buy. But if you're in a homebrew game, you could use any of the other rolling methods. So here, since it's me, I'm going to use the method that I grew up with, which is you roll 4d6, you take the highest 3. If a DM is generous, they might say you can re-roll 1s. That's going to make a very heroic character. I don't necessarily recommend that with an inexperienced DM, because basically what you get then are players who are crazy super powerful. So we are going to roll with the standard Bill Allen method. So I have 4 dice right here, and I'm going to make sure that this shot is shooting what I need it to. Okay, so 5, 4, 2, and 1. So that's a 5 and 4 is 9, and 2 is 11. I'm going to write these numbers down here at the bottom of the sheet, just so that I have them handy. Okay, you can all see that. I'm going to do this 6 times, total of 6 times. Hey, there we go, 5, 5, 5, 2, so that's a 15. Solid. Solid again, 5, 5, 3, 3, so that's a 13. I can live with all this so far. This is going to make for a power character. Let's have an 18. Come on, Bill. Use the power. No. Although I did get a 6 on that. So 6, 4, and 3. 13 again. So far we've got 11, 15, 13, 13. Very solid character. Oh, so close. 5, 4, and 3 is 12. That's 5 of the rolls. This is the last one, baby. Last roll. Come on, come on, come on. Now, if we were doing my heroic system, I'd re-roll those ones. Let's do it. Damn it. Re-roll a 1. Damn it. All right. You know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to re-roll those ones. So I'll just take the 10. It was a 6, 3, and a 1. So 10. Because, as my friend Brian Thomas from Initiative Coffee Company reminded me, it's good to have dump stats every once in a while. If you've heard that term dump stat, it basically means like your lowest stat. Part of the reason why it's good to have a dump stat is that if you have one low stat, it kind of creates something about your character that is more challenging. Sometimes it's more fun to play a character who has some challenges or obstacles. So my highest number right now is a 15. If I put that into intelligence, it becomes a 16. If I put it into dexterity, it becomes a 17. So either way, I'm not getting massive buffed stats, which is fine. This is a first level character. I think I'm going to go with... So this is a trick now. When you're talking about making characters, you got to think. Dex or intelligence, right? Those are going to be my two highest stats for my rogue. The benefit of Dex is that your dexterity affects, especially with a rogue, your armor class. You add in your armor that you're wearing, which is light armor, because you don't want any penalties to any of your skill checks. So leather or studded leather. So dexterity is important for your armor class. But probably for this character who's a rogue, I'm also going to be a dex-based melee fighter and a dex-based ranged fighter. So light weapons, daggers, maybe a short sword or rapier, and maybe a bow, longbow, since I'm an elf and I have proficiency in it, and longbows do dope damage. And Dex affects a lot of my skill checks. When we get into the rogue, a lot of my skills, like acrobatics, stealth, sleight of hand, all of those are Dex-based. Now, if I buff intelligence, if I put the 15 in intelligence, it becomes a 16. That will impact my knowledge checks. And I actually do want this guy to have some knowledges. I don't want him to just be like a thief kind of rogue. I want him to have knowledge because, again, that coincides well with the guild artisan. So I'm on a bit of a pickle. And I think what I'm going to decide to do is put the 15 into Dex, which will become a 17. And then I'm going to put a 13 into intelligence, which will become a 14 because I'm a high elf. That 14 will still give me a +2 to all my intelligence checks, which will be great, and a +2 for my cantrip, whatever I pick, because I'm a high elf. I get that free wizard cantrip. So I think that's a good move for this character's survival. So I'm going to basically cross that 15 out down here, and up here I'm going to write 17, because that's a +2 that I get for being an elf. Now, the ability score modifier for a 17 is the same as it is for a 16. It's +3. You know, while we're here, I'm going to point something out. I've noticed a lot of people who stream and who do stuff, they write this in a different order. And people have asked me this on videos all the time. They're like, Bill, shouldn't you write the big modifier number there and then your score in the little thing? No. No. The answer is no. I've been playing D&D longer than you. Do it the right way. Your attribute, your ability score, goes in the big box. So imagine not having a character sheet. This is how we would have written dexterity on a notepad, right? It would be strength, con, whatever, strength, con, dexterity, int, blah, blah, blah. And you would have written down your score. Okay? And then next to that, you would have written +4, +1, +3. So if you didn't have a character sheet with a big box and a little circle underneath it, that's how you would have written it. The modifier is smaller, okay? It's important because it affects a lot of things, but your number, your ability score should be in the big box. That's my rationale. And again, just to reference this, if you go back to like first edition D&D, you might have had a strength score. If you were like a fighter, human fighter, you might have had an 1875. Okay? There was a scale of a percentile, 1 through 100, for certain strengths of 18, higher than 18. So you wouldn't have written 75 in the big box. It's not like you would have been like 75, 18 in a circle. That's dumb. So now you know why you write your ability score in the big box. Also, by the way, look at the design of the character sheet. It says the big box is strength. Then there's a little box. The modifier goes in the little box, people. Let's start getting it right. All you people who maybe started in 4th or 5th edition, and we're doing it the wrong way, now you know better. Peace. No hate. All right, what does this guy not need? This is where we're thinking through. Oh, well, we know we want to put that 13. Can I see? Yeah. We want to put this, one of the two 13s, we want to put into intelligence, right? Because we get that +1. The nice thing about that is that 13 becomes a 14, which has a +2 modifier. Okay. Now we have strength, constitution, wisdom, and charisma. What's left? 11, 13, 12, and 10. All of those are fine. 10's the lowest. Here's what I don't need. I don't need strength. Some of you might be like, well, Bill, what if you're in a mine and your character has to use athletics and a crowbar to get something off? This is why this high elf would travel with big, beefy, strong tank characters. He's a rogue. Now, some of you might be like, well, what about making your dump stat charisma? No, I want a good charisma. In fact, charisma might be even more important, I know, hold on to your pants, than constitution. I want a good charisma because this character, after he goes on adventures and after he acquires these things, some of them he might sell. He wants to get a good price. We have that persuasion for free from the guild artisan. So don't make charisma your dump stat. It's incumbent on you as a DM, by the way, to make sure that you use social skills in your game. All right, I'm going to put a 13 into charisma because, again, it's important. Now, that's a +1 modifier. It's not huge, but it's better than nothing. That's my other 13. Now we're down to 12, 11, and 10. I think it's fair to put a 12 into Constitution. Why? Because Constitution grants you hit points, and that's a +1. It's not much, but it helps. Then I've got an 11 and a 10. Doesn't really matter because they're the same modifier of 0. So 10 in strength because I'm an elf and I'm small. Sleight of build. And I have an 11 in wisdom because that's good enough. Okay, so there we go. We have our ability scores. Done. We have our ability scores, our race, our class, our background. Are you starting to envision how this character will work? I am. It's exciting. Okay, let's add in our notes because we know that we're a high elf. And remember, high elves get things. They get some things. What the hell are the elves? Here we go. So I get a whole bunch of features and traits. Over here on this column of a character sheet or on your notepad, you could write all this stuff down. I'm just going to make a note. So my speed, my base speed up here is 30, which is standard, humanoid speed. I have dark vision. Dark vision. 60 feet. Keen senses. So I have proficiency with the perception skill. So I get that for free, which means, here, can y'all see that? Good. I get perception for free. So I'm going to put a black dot. Here's perception. I'm going to fill that in. That's awesome, and it's free. Proficiency in things is good. I get Fae Ancestry. So advantage on saves against charm and magic. That puts you to sleep. I'm just going to write Fae Ancestry. I know what it does, but if you don't, you can write out all the notes. Trance, which I'm also going to write down. I know what that does. Basically, it means that you can get a long rest in 4 hours instead of 8 hours. Elves are pretty powerful. Languages. You can speak, read, and write Common and Elvish. So down here in this box, I could write down other proficiencies language. So I have Common, Elvish, and remember I get 2 more because I'm a high elf. I get an extra language, and then for my guild artisan, I get a language. So I'm trying to think, what would be valuable languages? So Dwarvish? Or who else deals with gems? Where might there be a need to negotiate? Oh man, Dwarvish and Gnomish. That's what I'm going to do. Rock gnomes. So I'm going to take Dwarvish and Gnome-ish. So now, just by virtue of my languages, I can be an asset to the party. Maybe I speak 4 languages and, people only speak 1 or 2. That's kind of cool, right? Okay, going back. Don't forget that we get that cantrip. So I'll write that down later because I have to look through the wizard spell list. I don't make a lot of wizards per se. Let's go up to initiative. So my initiative is going to be a +3. That's based on my dexterity. That's it for race. We get those cool proficiencies in the elven martial weapons, which is dope. And the reason why that's dope is because rogues aren't typically fully martial characters. So what I mean by that is when you turn to the rogue, starting on page 95. Let me make sure this is in focus. Yes. So here we go. The rogue features. They get a 1d8 per level for hit dice. So at first level, it's 8 plus your con modifier. That's maxed out. After that, you roll a 1d8 and add your con modifier. Or you could just take a default of 5. Most DMs will let you roll, and if your roll sucks, they'll let you go with 5 plus your con modifier, right? All right, proficiencies. Light armor. That's what we talked about before. Leather is probably going to be your starter. If you can afford studded leather, good for you. Weapons. Simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords. But you'll notice that long bows are not in there. As an elf, you have elf weapon training, so you can use a long bow. Hell yes, use the long bow. Ranged attacks keep you safe. Okay, what else do we get? Thieves' tools. We get dexterity saving throw and intelligence saving throw, and then we choose 4 skills from acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, and stealth. Before we get too deep into that, let us recall something. As a guild artisan, we got some cool stuff. And that included some proficiencies. So I'm actually going to write down here in my proficiencies. I'm going to go back to Guild Artisan on page 132. I get Insight and Persuasion. So I want to fill these in because they're free with my background. Insight and Persuasion. I want to fill these in, okay, so that I don't pick any redundant skills from my class. So before even picking my class proficiencies, I know that I've got these 3 from my race and my background, which is dope. Don't forget that I get 1 type of artisan's tools. So I get jeweler tools, which includes gem stuff, and 1 language, which I already picked, and my feature of guild membership. So I'll write that down. So down here where you have your languages, it also says other proficiencies. So I'm going to write down jeweler tools. As a rogue, I also get thieves tools. Those are the proficiencies, not the equipment themselves. Some people just assume that if you have a proficiency in something, you get it. You can get it, depending on what you start off with your starter pack. But we'll get to that in a second. So let's go back to the rogue on page 95. I get to start with 9 hit points. 9. That's measly. So there's my hit point maximum at first level. 9 hit points. That's 8 plus my con. You always get to max out your hit points at first level for every class. I, as a home rule, allow my players in any campaign I'm running to max out their hit points for the first 5 levels. And then after 5th level, they have to roll. I just feel like it gives them a little more of a fighting shot at surviving. What else do we get? Saving throws, dexterity, and intelligence. That's up here. So again, I'm not worried about the numbers, but I'm just gonna, fill in the circle, dexterity and intelligence, and we'll go back and figure out what that means. At first level, a rogue, go up to the table there. At first level, a rogue gets a +2 proficiency bonus, like every class. They also get sneak attack, doing 1d6 extra damage. They get expertise, sneak attack, and thieves' cant. Thieves' cant is another language. Technically speaking, it's kind of like a mix of techniques. So I'll add that in. I can speak to other thieves, which is good. It's good for business for this guy. We'll get to what expertise means, but we're going to dip back in for a second and look at what skills to pick. Okay, so again, the rogues, one of the advantages of rogues is that they're typically very skilled. They choose 4 options: acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, and stealth. I'm going to have to say that this guy would need to have investigation. I see investigation both from a research perspective, like literally he's going into libraries and looking up like famous jewels or gems that have gone missing, but also investigating like a room or a space and thoroughly looking for and searching for stuff. I think investigation is going to be important. Is sleight of hand important? You might think it is, but he's not a pickpocket. He's not stealing jewels and gems from other people. He wants to acquire them through adventure, even raw gems that he could then fashion into jewelry. So I don't think he would need sleight of hand. Stealth is always useful. I could see stealth being valuable. He has insight already. So when he's making deals with people, trying to tell what they're, bargaining for, what's most important to them, I think could be important. I'm a little disappointed that he doesn't have history as an option. I would have liked to have history. But you know what? That's where having an important, a strong investigation comes into play here. So investigation, stealth. Acrobatics, again, if he was going to be a thief, like I'm robbing, maybe he is. Maybe I've been thinking about this a little too narrow. If I expand my perspective on this character concept to say that he will go to great lengths, even stealing sometimes, right? Maybe he does a little bit of burglary to acquire jewels and gems. It's kind of like his fallback. That would fit really well then. Then I could take stealth, acrobatics, sleight of hand, and investigation. But that doesn't leave me with any deception. Now, I have persuasion, which is cool. But does he need deception? Does he need to lie to people? He doesn't have a huge charisma. So I don't know if I need deception. Maybe someone else in the party who is more charismatic, like a bard, for example, or a warlock or a sorcerer, would have a higher charisma and would maybe take deception. I'm going to bank on that. I'm going to bank on someone else in the party being the face, the charisma person. So I'm going to say this guy is going to need acrobatics, right, to be able to get to some things. Maybe if whether he's burglarizing or just authentically adventuring, sometimes it's hard to get up a surface, right? You can't just climb. You're going to have to do some tricky moves. So maybe acrobatics. Maybe investigation. Sleight of hand and stealth. That's it. That's what I'm going to do. Acrobatics. Investigation. Sleight of hand. And stealth. Okay. That's a lot of proficiencies because rogues get a lot. And then I picked up the 2 from the background and 1 from the race choice, so we're in great shape. Now, at first level, rogues get something called expertise. If you're following along on your player's handbook, this is on page 96. Choose 2 of your skill proficiencies, or 1 skill proficiency and 1 with thieves' tools. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses either of the chosen proficiencies. At 6th level, you can choose 2 more. This is really important. So, do I double my proficiency with jeweler's tools so that right off the bat he's like amazing? Do I double my proficiency with investigation so that he's better able to find things, or with perception, or or with his social skills, with persuasion and insight? This is all good questions. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay true to our concept. First and foremost, whether he's adventuring to acquire jewels and gems, or whether he's burglarizing or stealing stuff from people, the point is to acquire the gems and the jewels and to craft amazing new things, right? I'm going to make expertise not in something mechanically useful like stealth or sleight of hand or acrobatics. I'm going to put it into jeweler tools and into thieves tools. I'm going out on a whim. I've never done this quite like this. So I'm going to write down expertise and expertise next to those. What that does is it doubles my ability score, or my proficiency rather. So with my +2 proficiency bonus that I get at first level, I actually have a total of my intelligence for jeweler tools plus my doubled proficiency bonus. So instead of it being just a +4, it would be a +6. And I'm going to write that down right there. Now, for thieves tools, those operate by dexterity. So then I'm going to double my proficiency bonus from 2 to 4 and add in my dex bonus. So that's 4 plus 3 is 7. Okay. Now, why did I do that and not all these? I did that because that's expertise. I wanted to identify what I was doing. Now I can go in and fill in all this other stuff. So we'll just start top to bottom, right? So I have no bonus for strength. That's a 0 to saving throws. I have proficiency with dexterity saving throws. So I'm +3 from my dex, +2 from my proficiency bonus. That's a +5. I have a +1 from con. I get my proficiency bonus with intelligence. So that's 2 plus 2. So I have a +4 to an int saving throw. That means I'm pretty good with resisting spells, perhaps, or effects from intelligence. I have no bonus from wisdom. And I have a +1 for charisma saving throws. Not bad. All right, now we go into the skills and proficiencies. Okay, so we're at acrobatics. That's dex-based. So I get 2 plus 3. So that's +5. Now I'm going to skip down to my next thing. That's insight. So it's wisdom. I don't get a bonus, but because I have proficiency, I get my +2 from the proficiency bonus, which is nice because my wisdom sucks. Investigation is my intelligence bonus plus proficiency bonus. So that's +4. Perception is wisdom. So it's only a +2 from my proficiency bonus. Persuasion is charisma. So that's +3 because I got a 1 for charisma. Sleight of hand is dex. So that's 2 plus 3 is 5. And so is stealth. So that's +5 plus 5. Now, you'll notice that I didn't bother filling in the rest of these. That doesn't mean that you can't make a skill check or that you don't get a modifier. It just means that you don't have proficiency, so you don't add this +2 proficiency bonus to any of those skills. So now I'll go back. Animal handling is wisdom, so that's 0. Arcana is intelligence, so that's +2. Athletics is strength, that's 0. Deception is charisma, +1. History is +2 because it's intelligence. Intimidation is +1. Medicine is 0. And nature is +2 because intelligence. Performance is +1. Religion is +2. Survival is 0. So now I have all those numbers filled in case the DM makes a check or I want to make a check for something that I don't have proficiency in. At least now I can look at the numbers and figure out what that is. Your passive wisdom is basically your perception. So I'm going to look at my wisdom, which is 11. So normally that's not that exciting, but because I have proficiency, it's 12. Yay. What else do we have? Armor class. Okay, so as a rogue, I get sneak attack. I'm going to write that in. We'll explain the mechanics of how that works later. And at level 3, I'll take different archetypes. But for right now, I'm kind of like me. All right, so one last thing. On page 96, you get equipment packages. Right? So you can choose. Do I want a rapier or a short sword? Do I want a short bow and quiver or a short sword? Lame, lame. I'm going to go with the rapier. And then I'm going to go with the burglar's pack. Leather armor, 2 daggers, and thieves' tools. So all that stuff is here. Okay, so rapier. My to-hit bonus for the rapier, because I'm using a finesse weapon, is my dex plus my proficiency bonus, because I have proficiency with rapier. So that's a total of +5 to hit. That's how you calculate that. A rapier does 1d8 damage, which is incredible for a small weapon. It's almost kind of broken. And my bonus to that damage is my dex bonus. So it's 1d8 plus 3 to stab someone with a rapier. I get a couple daggers. Same thing to hit, +5. 1d4 plus 3 for damage. Somewhere in my adventuring, I'm going to acquire a longbow, because that's 1d8 plus 3 for a ranged attack, and longbows have phenomenal range. But I don't have the startup cash to do that. I'm also granted leather armor and thieves' tools. So down here, I'm going to write down leather armor, thieves' tools. I do have those jewelry tools. That's included in my background. And the burglar's pack. Okay, so I got all that stuff for free. In my background, I got 15 gold pieces, too, that I could spend, which isn't enough, really, to buy anything cool, but it's adventuring money. You know, typically buy some rope, buy some a tinderbox with flint and steel, a torch. I could make a whole video on basic character supplies that you need. Let's take a look at what that guild artisan stuff gave us as well. So artisan's tools, letter of introduction, traveler's clothes. Okay, so I got my jewelry tools, traveler's clothes. Kind of writing this stuff, jotting this stuff down fast. My letter of introduction. Okay, let's take a quick look at equipment on page 145. You could see that leather armor gives us an 11 plus our dex modifier. That's what we get to start off with for free as a rogue. So, what does that mean for our character here? 11 plus 3 is a 14 armor class. Not super squishy, but also definitely not a tank. You do not want to just run into combat. That would be categorically bad. What does that burglar pack give us, you ask? Yes, answer me. Burglar pack. I forgot where the burglar packs are. Where are the packs? Equipment packs. On page 151 in this green box. I'm going to knock over my dice. Burglar packs include a backpack, 1,000 ball bearings, 10 feet of string, a bell, 5 candles, a crowbar, a hammer, 10 pythons, a hooded lantern, 2 flasks of oil, 5 days rations, tinderbox, water skin, also 50 feet of hempen rope. That's dope. That's all your basic adventure supplies. So I just wrote down burglar's pack. If you're new to the game, you should probably write down all that crap on your equipment or on like the backside of your character sheet. Boy, what's left? You thought I forgot about that free cantrip, didn't you? Wrong. I'll tell you exactly what we're going to do. We're going to look at cantrips right now. Wizard cantrips. Acid Splash, Blade Ward, Chill Touch, Dancing Lights, Firebolt. That's probably it. Mage Hand. Mage Hand might be super useful for the acquisition of things. Ray of Frost, Prestidigitation, Minor Illusion. Those are all great cantrips. You can't go wrong. Let's look up Firebolt, because sometimes it's important to have the ability to blast things from far away. Firebolt, range of 120 feet. So until I get that longbow, this might be my jam. You hurl a mote of fire at a creature or object within range. Make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, the target takes 1d10 fire damage. A flammable object hit by this spell ignites if it isn't being worn or carried. That's pretty handy. So I could stick true to the concept and go with something more useful, like Mage Hand, which will allow me anything within 30 feet that weighs less than 5 pounds, I think. Spectral Floating Hand appears at a point you choose within range. The hand lasts for the duration or until you dismiss it. The hand vanishes, blah, 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 30 feet. You can use this spell to control the hand. You can use the hand to manipulate an object. Yeah, you know what? I like Firebolt, but Mage Hand is super useful, especially to somebody like this. If he's working in his jewelry kit, he could actually use Mage Hand to like bring himself another tool. He could use it to like steal things. Mage Hand's super useful. So I've done everything basically that you need to make a character. I hope that my process and working through this process with you guys has been helpful. First of all, thank you for tuning in. Please consider subscribing and sharing and liking and clicking on the notifications bell. And if you like this content and you want to continue to support me and the community that we're building to help spread the word about amazing tabletop gaming content, then consider Patreon. We also have merchandise, so there's lots of different ways that you guys can help out. But again, at the very basic level, thank you for your support and for subscribing, and we'll see you next time.